What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the economic calendar moving forward, some very important factors involving the markets, and what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break the devil's information, before I talk about why tomorrow is going to be a huge day, as we have massive data coming out that will affect the whole market, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks, and the offer ends in just 3 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about the markets. We're seeing quite a few buyers stepping in for the indices, for the ETFs out there, and many of these equities, and they're continuing to buy up the markets, in my personal opinion. But the question is, will they continue doing this into tomorrow? This will depend on some data I want to talk about very, very quickly. So, what data is coming out? As a very important reminder, tomorrow is going to be Friday, June 28th, 2024. 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have core PCE data coming out and also the PCE report month over month and year over year. So we are going to be expecting core PCE month over month to be 0.1%. For PCE month over month, we want this to be 0 to 0.1% as well. And that's for all items. For all items, PCE, we're expecting 2.6%. And then for core PCE, that's all items without food and energy, we're expecting 2.6 to 2.7%. This data is going to be very big because the Fed tends to prioritize PCE over CPI. It is also heavily impacted by CPI, but the Fed uses this for research, for data, and what they end up using for their interest rate projections and such. So it's very important that we pay attention to this data, and it's going to have a big effect on the markets. Now, with that being said, that's going to be the main piece of data for the day. After that, we do have some PMI data at 9:45 a.m., which is kind of minor, and then we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report, which could cause some volatility. Then we have Bowman giving a speech at noon. Bowman is known for being a bit more hawkish, so we'll see what that this ends up causing. So lots of stuff coming out for Friday, but the main time to be looking for volatility is 1 hour before the market ends up opening. So what do I think is going to happen with PCE? Are we going to be below expectations? Above expectations? Is it going to be hot? I have some data to show you that suggests it's going to be a decent PCE. Here's the reason why. Firstly, you have to remember that PCE and CPI are heavily correlated with one another because they both are known for being inflationary measures. Look, since 2000, they've been running together, dropping, pumping up, down, right? And then we got this big spike with both of them for 2023 to 2022 before they started coming back down again. So you guys could see how they tend to be heavily correlated with one another. Now, this correlation is very important because when you look at CPI, the data for CPI came out for the month of May already. And by the way, guys, the PCE data is for the month of May as well. CPI already came out, and we saw a decent CPI. The market liked the data. CPI ended up decreasing, at least on paper, for the month of May. Now, once again, like I always say, I don't really trust the data entirely because it's very biased and manipulated. We just have to go based off this data. Because CPI decreased again in May, right? That does not necessarily mean prices went down, just meant that the rate at which they're going up is what's decreasing. So that tells us that inflation, the numbers are improving a bit, at least on paper, and there's a very good chance that PCE will do the same thing, just like how it's been doing historically. So this suggests that when this PCE data comes out tomorrow, most of the data, if not all of it, will most likely be either aligned with expectations or below expectations, in my opinion, lower than what we got in the previous reports. Now, the expectations are pretty low for month over month, so I'm not as confident about that. But year over year, the numbers look pretty good. And I think there's a very good chance we get everything aligned with expectations. So, year over year for core and PCE for all items, I'm anticipating everything will be aligned with expectations, if not better. And then for month over month, I'm not as confident. I'm kind of in the middle with those, but I do think that the odds favor a decent report looking at the previous data. So, with that being said, there's a good chance that the data is going to be decent and this could be more positive for the markets. SPY also happens to have about 460,000 of these calls expiring, and we have over 1.85 million of the puts expiring with the 541 max pain and a 4.03 puts to call ratio. Basically, there's a bunch of options expiring. Are we going to see kind of like the market gap up and gap down, then chop around, or is the market going to just trade in a very, very tricky manner where they end up squeezing shorts? So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm going to be open minded considering how many puts there are expiring. And then for earnings, we just got Nike announcing its earnings after close, and we're getting very close to the end of the quarter. Tomorrow is going to be the last trading day of the quarter, by the way, guys. So it's going to be a very important close. Could Wall Street try to inflate the markets just because they want to make their balance sheets look better? It's always a possibility. There's going to be a lot of manipulation tomorrow. And for Nike, the shares are down quite a bit, despite the fact that they ended up beating on EPS but missing on revenue. They ended up actually cutting their projections. Their 2025 guidance was cut because of the fact that they are seeing sales drop quite a bit because of Chinese weakness. And that's very, very important. So that's the reason why Nike is down quite a bit. Shares are down 11% right now. Not the best of sales, and revenue is a little bit of a miss. So that is why that's kind of like tanking. Despite that, SPY is holding up very, very well, and we're seeing a lot of buyers stepping in. Let me just inform you all that technicals look bullish for the markets. The market's trying to look bullish, like it wants to bounce, but there's a big but. In order for this to happen, it also depends on the data. So you have to be very, very open minded, not solely look at technicals. I'm going to show you what technicals show us just to give you guys an idea of what's more favorable. But just to be safe, we will watch and see what the data gives us. All right. So for SPY, what I like about this is the 4 hour is showing a nice accumulation structure right here. And then on the 30 minutes, I called out a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure that's developing. So this is favoring that Wall Street. Basically, they dumps the markets a bit. SPY went from 550 all the way down to 542, an 8 points drop. We start to consolidate here as buyers start to step in, and the buyer starts defending at around 543, around that range. So now the buyers are defending, returning very nicely, and we're forming a nice cup like formation, or maybe an inverse head and shoulders, however you want to interpret this. And it looks more bullish. This does favor the upside more, as we have this nice resistance to be tested. So the 30 minutes is looking more bullish. The 4 hour is also looking more bullish to me. If we break 547, this is where the previous high happened to be right here, we're going to likely start pushing towards all-time highs, in my opinion. If we fail to break 547, if we reject off that, we could be returning back down to 544, and we have to lose 543 to turn back to bearish. Then we're going to be looking for a big rug pull. In my personal opinion, although the rug pull is possible, you want to be open-minded. So if we're bearish, you want to lose 543. Yes, we could be getting that gap fill all the way down if PCE is hotter than expected. And if PCE is decent, we're going to be looking for a break of 547 and possibly a nice rally tomorrow. The 4 hour is looking more bullish, especially on the PPO. So I would say the chart favors upside. It is looking more probable, like we're going to get the upside move. It's looking a lot more probable that that's going to happen. And I favor that a bit more, but I'm not 100% convinced until I see the data. So keep that in the back of your mind. I would not solely trade just based off, the 4 hour or anything like that. I would not solely trade based off technicals when we have, big inflationary reports coming out. But the chart suggests upside is more favorable and a lot more, a lot more opportunistic right now. And I'll just have to wait and see how things end up looking, at least moving forward. So we look more bullish on SPY heading into tomorrow. We will see what the data gives us just to be safe. So I'm not going to promise that. So make sure you're open-minded just to be safe, but just know that that's what the chart is suggesting. For NVIDIA, we're in the middle right now. We just chopped around all day. We have to still break above 126 to turn back to bullish and start pushing for 130. And if we get a rejection, we end up losing support right here around 122. I'll be looking for a dip all the way down to 120. Looking at the way that this is moving, I'm seeing some more upside potential, at least for NVIDIA. I think that this could attempt to bounce very, very soon. But just to be safe, we will have to wait and see if we can break resistance or not. So overall, NVIDIA, at least on the 4 hour time frame, it is building a little bit of strength. But we need to see if this can actually break resistance just to be safe and see how things go from there. So with that being said, guys, we'll wait and see what the data gives us. NVIDIA is very indecisive. I am seeing that it's trying to base, so it does have potential to try to bounce, but nothing is guaranteed until we see the data going into tomorrow. So I'll wait and see on this one. For Bitcoin is looking like it's trying to turn because we had this low right here. So before we were just tanking on Bitcoin. Bitcoin tanked a lot, guys. If you actually look back at it, just like this, you guys could see we used to be all the way up closer to like 75,000, all the way up here, 72,000, right? And then Bitcoin has been actually dipping since. It's been on a bit of a downtrend since then. We're all the way down to about 61,000 right now. So it dipped quite a bit. Now, after such a dip, we came down to this low right here at the 58,000 area. We retested our 20 EMA, rejected a bit, and now we're trying to push off our key Fibonacci retracement area. So there's a sign that the trend is trying to shift if we end up breaking these highs. And going into tomorrow, if we can manage to break past 62,200, I'll be looking for a move back up to 64,000. That is very probable if Bitcoin gets a bounce. If we reject here and we end up losing support at 60,500. I'll be looking for a move back down towards the low around 58,000. Overall, there's a good chance that this might try to bounce, and we could be looking for 62,000 plus as our resistance. So the odds favor the upside on the 4 hour for Bitcoin. However, right now I'm not really seeing that this is breaking out yet. So let's wait and see what PCE data gives us for confirmation. But the chart does look like it has potential. For Tesla, when you zoom out all the way on Tesla, you will see we have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure. We're looking very strong right now. Tesla's seeing buyers defending it, and we're continuing to break out exactly as we predicted. Now, with this breakout on Tesla, we could be trying to approach that 200 resistance, and I think that Tesla's going for the big 200. I don't think it's going to stop right here. So technically, it does look a lot more bullish. It looks like it wants to keep going, but in order for this to continue to go up higher, we have to wait and see what happens with some big data, the PCE data report going into tomorrow. If we get a decent PCE, Tesla could be pushing into the 200s. A PCE is hot, so we could get a rug pull back down to 191.6. Technically, it is favoring the 200s, so it does look more bullish. So we'll see if that ends up being the case with the data that's coming out. For the QQQ, the 4 hour has a nice bullish cross in the PPO, and we are looking a little bit more bullish with this inverse head and shoulders like structure. So the QQQ looks more bullish to me, especially as it's pumping in the after hours. We're also above 482. If we break past 484, however, I think this is going to be pushing up to all-time highs. If we reject off 484, we'll be looking for 480 and eventually 476. Overall, the chart looks more bullish, like it wants to push up higher, so it favors the upside a bit more. I'm not going to promise it's going to happen because it depends on all of the data that's coming out. So we'll wait and see. But just know that the chart still looks more bullish to me. Apple's also leading the way for the QQQ, in my opinion, because we have a nice inverse head and shoulders as well. And we have a nice accumulation structure right here. So this looks like it wants to start pushing up higher. If we dip down, we could try to retest like 213, the pre-market, and start pushing up higher. And if we end up breaking past 216, I think we're going to be going up to 220. So that's looking more bullish with a nice accumulation and nice inverse head and shoulders. If we lose 212, we could be dipping lower, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the odds favor a little dip and a bounce and a push up towards 220. That is looking more probable in my personal opinion. With that being said, thank you all so much for listening. That is going to be it, at least for the main five I typically go over. Now we're going to do a speed run for the rest of these. So for Palantir, despite the fact that there is a head and shoulders, notice a very interesting trend in the market. There's a lot of head and shoulders traps I'm seeing this year. We had a head and shoulders on Palantir, and this led to a big pump instead. So this looks more bullish. It looks like it wants to fill this imbalance up here. It wants to keep going towards 26. If we're bullish, that's going to happen. If we're bearish, 24 is coming. It does favor the upside. For Supermicro, the chart's looking a bit more bullish to me. We had a head and shoulders. I was worried that this would play out, but we had to lose key support for confirmation. We ended up not losing the support. We actually got a big bounce instead. So that means that this is looking more bullish and 900 is looking imminent. So this favors a push all the way up into the 900s in my opinion. So Supermicro is looking more bullish. I'm seeing a lot more momentum building, and it's looking quite good in my personal opinion from a technical standpoint. So this favors upside, at least in my opinion. For Rivian, and by the way, for Supermicro, I forgot to mention the upside is going to be around 900. If that breaks, 920 is coming, but it depends on PCE, so we'll see. But I do want to say that upside looks more probable from a technical standpoint. For Rivian, we're dipping a bit. We're trying to bounce very close to our 20 EMA, and I think we're going to likely retest this 15 area. It came very close to the level I called out. I called 13.68 yesterday. We actually bounced off 13.5, so very close. So now if we do bounce here, we're going to be looking for a test of 15 and eventually higher levels like 16 after that. So that's previous support becoming resistance. So in my opinion, the 4 hour on Rivian is looking like it's building some strength and momentum and has more upside potential. But just to be safe, we'll see if we end up getting the break or not. So I think that Rivian might try to bounce into the closer to 16. We'll see if that ends up being the case, but this is going to depend on a lot of different factors. If we get a decent PCE, I think that 16 is coming. If we lose support, we'll be looking for a dip all the way down to about 13.3 and we'll start dipping, but this favors upside as a stronger possibility. For SoFi, SoFi has more upside potential with a nice inverse head and shoulders. This is looking more bullish. If we break past 6.57, I think this imbalance will fill towards 6.74. So it looks more bullish to me on SoFi. It's going to likely try to push higher. For the IWM Russell 2000, if we manage to break past 202, we're going to be looking for a pump all the way up towards this 204 area. And if we reject here, we'll be looking for 201 to break. If we lose that, we'll be dipping back down. But this is looking more bullish now. If it breaks this high, this could actually continue to about 204, so it looks more bullish in my personal opinion. So this looks like it wants to push higher. We'll see if we end up getting a big move to the upside, and we'll be very, very patient at least nonetheless. Let's see what PCE brings us. If it's hot, we're going to get a rug pull back down to 201. If it's decent, 204 is coming. Technicals favor the upside, at least for now. For AMD, it's trying to bounce again. If it breaks past 160, we're easily going up to about 162. And if that breaks, we're going to be looking for 164.5. If you reject off 160, we'll be dipping back down towards 158. This chart looks more bullish to me. It looks like it wants to push up for 162. So I favor the upside a bit more. For ARM, we're looking a little bit more bullish. We got a nice bounce off our 50 EMA. If we keep going, we'll be looking for a push all the way up to about 173.5. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 161. If that fails, we're going to be dipping down to 155. This chart's showing a nice accumulation, so it does favor the upside. So I do favor that in my personal opinion. For Coinbase, we have a nice double bottom right here. It's a nice double bottom. It's trying to push higher. I see a test of about 229 coming tomorrow as the most likely possibility. If we're bearish, and let's just say PCE is hot, then watch 220. If we lose that, we'll be dipping down to about 215 all over again. But this chart looks more bullish. It looks like it wants to be pushing all the way up towards 230. 229 to 230 basically. So I favor upside a bit more technically speaking. We will be patient and wait and see if PCE causes, but technicals do favor the upside. Once again, guys, technicals, it may not be sufficient, but they do give you at least some insights for tomorrow. For Amazon, we're looking very strong. I did call this out yesterday, might dip and then bounce and continue to push. And that's what's happening. We are continuing to push. So I think that this thing wants to go up to 200. I think we're going to be testing that very soon. If we get a rug pull, we're going to be dipping back down to about 195. This is the previous breakout area. If we don't get the rug pull, if we keep going, we're going to be looking for 200. This chart favors 200, so I'll see if that ends up being the case. So I'll be watching that as well. On top of this, for Meta, Meta is looking a bit more bullish to me. It looks like it wants to be testing 522. This looks bullish because there's a lot more upside potential, and we're seeing the 4 hour turning bullish. So this favors upside in my personal opinion as well. If we get a rug pull, we'll be looking for a test of about 515. That's looking less probable from a technical standpoint, but we'll see what PCE gives us. Microsoft is on a very, very nice uptrend. We're trying to push higher for 454. If this breaks, we're going up to 456. This looks more bullish to me in my personal opinion. So this is favoring upside as well. There's no sign of it breaking structure quite yet. To turn bearish, you want to see it basically lose 450. If we lose that, we will dip lower, but there's no sign of that yet. It still favors the upside. Google's on a nice uptrend. We could be going higher all the way up towards 188. And if that breaks, 190 is coming. So we favor the upside even more. So we'll see if we end up getting a break higher. We'll be very, very patient. For GameStop, if we break past 25.57, we'll be looking for a push all the way up to the imbalance towards 28. And if we lose 24.6, we'll be dipping all the way down towards the 23s. So we'll have to give this some time and see how things end up moving from here. There's a nice accumulation right here, a nice inverse head and shoulders. GameStop has some potential to run, but we'll see what happens next week and also based off PCE. So I'll wait for that. AMC also has some upside momentum building. If we break past 4.74 and hold above that, we'll be looking for a big push all the way up to about 5. So that looks a bit more probable in my opinion. For DJT, we pushed all the way up to the target today towards 40, and then we got a rejection. Now we're kind of shuffling between supply and demand. If we lose 35.6, now we'll be dipping lower all the way back down towards 34 and then 32. If we bounce, we're going to retest 40. We are in the middle, so give this some time, so we'll see how it goes. For the VIX is on a bit of a downtrend right here. If the VIX rejects, we have this gap to fill down here towards 11.9, and that could, that could lead to more downside. The VIX is showing some weakness. This favors the market potentially pushing higher, so we'll see if that develops and that continues. And then the dollar index has been pushing quite a bit, but this 106 area is acting as resistance. If we lose that support, we'll be dipping all the way down to 105, so we'll just have to give this more time and see how things end up going. There's also a bearish divergence developing on the dollar index that suggests that we might get a rejection. This suggests that the market might continue to push higher. So I'm seeing a lot of signals that are showing the market might try to push tomorrow. However, it could always be a trap, so you can't be 100% certain, as we want to be very open-minded traders to PCE. So that being said, we will wait and see as very patient traders what PCE gives us. Whatever it gives us will have a big effect on what happens tomorrow. So keep that in the back of your mind, guys, and get ready for tomorrow. I will see you guys again tomorrow before the market opens to report how PCE looks and the other pieces of data. Until then, I just want to say I really appreciate every single one of you. Please have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. I'll see you guys soon on the next one going into tomorrow. Thanks again, guys, for listening, and peace out.